I'm a big fan of yours. I'm really excited to meet you.
Well, thank you.
He doesn't cast safe. He doesn't cast by numbers. Tarantino casts like a gunslinger, quick, instinctive, and deadly precise. And once you're in, you're part of the myth.
So for Pumpkin, we will offer the movie to Tim Roth.
For over 30 years, Quentin Tarantino has rewritten the rules of cinema, dialogue-driven, ultra-stylized, blood-soaked, and hyper-specific. But behind the chaos, there's something most people miss. He's a loyalty guy. Once he finds someone who gets it, who understands his rhythm, his madness, his structure, he brings them back. Again and again. Not because they're stars, not because they're trending, but because they lock into his wavelength like it's coded into their DNA. And once he finds that, you're not cast, you're carved in. Pulp Fiction, Kill Bill, Inglourious Bastards, Django Unchained. His films might jump genres, but there's one thread that never changes: the actors he trusts. He doesn't just write for them, he builds worlds around their voices. Tarantino doesn't cast to fill roles, he casts to explode them. And when you watch it happen on screen, you're not watching performance, you're watching possession.
I mean, Tim Roth is a very fine actor, and I know you just worked with him on Reservoir Dogs, so I'm sure that there's a connection and a loyalty there.
He's worked with dozens, but there's a rare few who speak his cinematic language fluently, who push him, inspire him, challenge him without ever derailing him, and somehow keep up. Here are the 6 actors Tarantino keeps closest to the flame, the voices behind the violence, the calm inside the chaos, and the reason he never had to look further. Number 1. Samuel L. Jackson. Some collaborations don't start with a handshake, they start with a monologue. And when Samuel L. Jackson walked into that room to read for Pulp Fiction, Tarantino didn't just find an actor, he found a voice he'd never heard before, but instantly recognized. Jules Winfield wasn't just cast, he was claimed. Jackson once said, "I didn't audition. I claimed that role like it was written in my blood." That wasn't bravado, that was alignment. From that moment forward, Tarantino didn't write for characters, he wrote for Jackson. Because once you hear someone deliver your words with that rhythm, that authority, that fire, you stop looking anywhere else. And Jackson? He didn't come to please, he came to burn the room down. Tarantino has said more than once, Jackson isn't just part of his world, he is the world. The sermons, the silences, the outbursts. Jackson doesn't say lines, he conducts them. In Jackie Brown, he made menace look like charm. In Kill Bill, his cameo didn't whisper, it echoed. In Django Unchained, his role didn't just divide audiences, it redefined what loyalty, fear, and power could look like under one roof. But it wasn't just screen time, it was screen gravity. Tarantino once laughed in an interview and said, "If I give Sam the phone book, he'll make it Shakespeare." By the time The Hateful Eight hit theaters, there wasn't even a question anymore. Jackson wasn't being cast, he was being returned. Tarantino gave him the film's pulse, and Jackson gave it something colder, control. Because when he delivers those monologues, eyes still, voice low, you're not watching performance, you're watching authority.
It ain't so far-fetched, Senor Bob.
It's not about volume, it's not even about fury, it's about timing. Tarantino knew Jackson could hold a pause longer than most actors can hold a scene, and he used that, over and over again. There's a reason Tarantino never stops bringing him back. It's not nostalgia, it's necessity. When people ask who Tarantino's muse is, they expect some enigmatic answer, but Tarantino already gave it. On record, with certainty. He's my De Niro, my Eastwood, my everything. There's no mystery. Jackson isn't a guest in Tarantino's universe. He's the cornerstone it was built on. Other directors talk about chemistry. Tarantino and Jackson built alchemy. Because some actors deliver, but Samuel L. Jackson defines. Number 2. Uma Thurman. Some directors build characters. Tarantino built a myth, and he built it around her. Uma Thurman didn't just star in Kill Bill, she became the archetype, the avenger, the mother, the blade. But rewind a decade before that, back to Pulp Fiction, when Mia Wallace danced her way into pop culture history with just one glance and a cigarette. The wig, the silence, the danger. Tarantino didn't direct her, he trusted her. He once said, "There's something about Uma, she gets the rhythm of my words before I even finish writing them." That trust wasn't casual, It was deliberate. It shaped his writing room. It changed the way he thought about violence, revenge, and female agency. Because when Tarantino wrote Kill Bill, he didn't cast Uma. He called her.
It was 6 months of training 5 days a week from 9 to 5.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
The Bride wasn't a character built for any actress. She was built for one, only one. The pauses, the posture, the silence between sword strikes. It wasn't just direction. It was a collaboration built on history and pain. Tarantino and Thurman didn't just work together. They argued, they fought, and then they created. It wasn't always smooth. The Kill Bill car crash nearly destroyed them both. She was injured. He was blamed. The press took sides. Fans took notes. But here's the truth. They didn't walk away. Thurman said years later, "Quentin and I have our issues, but we also have our love. It's complicated, but it's real. And real is what made it last." Because when the dust settled and the camera stopped rolling, there was still something between them. Something unfinished. Tarantino didn't just praise her. He returned to her, again and again, in interviews, in retrospectives, in scripts no one else saw. He once admitted, "I don't think I'll ever create a character more powerful than the Bride, and I wouldn't want to unless it's with Uma." That's not nostalgia, that's loyalty. The kind that cuts deeper than applause. And the loyalty wasn't just personal, it was cinematic. Because everything Tarantino tried to say about pain, motherhood, justice, and rage, he said through her, even when they didn't speak, even when things fell apart behind the scenes. He never recast, never replaced, never tried again with someone else, because you don't rewrite mythology. You just wait for the next chapter. Number 3, Leonardo DiCaprio. When Tarantino cast Leonardo DiCaprio, he wasn't just bringing in a movie star, he was bringing in a weapon. DiCaprio had already done the prestige game, he'd done the survival stories, the romances, the political thrillers, but what he hadn't done, until Tarantino, was bleed for a villain. In Django Unchained, Tarantino handed him something toxic. A southern plantation owner, charming on the outside, rotting on the inside, and Leo didn't flinch. In fact, he leaned in. Tarantino later admitted, "I wasn't sure he'd go there. It's a dark, ugly place," but he didn't hesitate, not once. And the scene that proved it. That dinner table, the broken glass. The blood running down Leo's hand wasn't fake, it was real. He smashed his palm open on camera, stayed in character, and finished the take.
Hey! Lay your palms flat on that tabletop! If you lift those palms...
Tarantino called cut once the scene was done, not when Leo got hurt. That's how deep the trust went. What mattered more than the blood was what Leo brought underneath it. He didn't play Calvin Candy like a cartoon, he played him like a man who believed he was good. That was more terrifying. And that's what Tarantino needed, because Leo doesn't overact. He listens, he absorbs, and then he strikes. That performance changed something. It was the first time Tarantino handed over that much narrative weight to someone new. Not a recurring actor, not someone from his usual roster, a stranger, and Leo made it personal. So when Once Upon a Time in Hollywood came around, the call wasn't a question, it was a homecoming. Tarantino didn't pitch Leo a role, he pitched him a legacy. Rick Dalton wasn't written for anyone else, he said. It was Leo or nothing. And Leo showed up wounded, vulnerable, still searching for greatness but past his prime. A once famous actor slipping quietly out of relevance. It was fiction, sure, but there was something autobiographical in there too. And Leo knew it. The result wasn't explosive. It was sad, funny, human. Tarantino had always made room for blood, revenge, spectacle. But with Leo, he made room for grace. Their connection wasn't loud, but it was undeniable. Leo delivered 2 of the most fully realized, emotionally complex characters in Tarantino's entire career. One cruel, one broken, and both unforgettable. Tarantino said in an interview, "When Leo works, he brings everything. Not just talent, history, weight. That's rare. And that kind of rare doesn't get cast lightly. It gets written in." Number 4, Christoph Waltz. When Quentin Tarantino found Christoph Waltz, it wasn't a discovery. It was a detonation. Before Inglourious Basterds, Waltz was almost unknown outside of Europe. A veteran of television, respected, skilled, but overlooked. And then Tarantino handed him Hans Landa, smiling, terrifying, articulate beyond belief. And everything changed. Tarantino didn't just give him the villain, he gave him the film. Landa was originally written as unplayable, too smart, too talkative, too much. Tarantino was ready to abandon the script entirely, until Waltz walked into the room. "If I couldn't find Landa, the movie was dead," Tarantino said. "Then Christoph walked in and saved my film." And save it he did. From the opening scene, milk, cigarettes, soft smiles, and death behind every syllable, Waltz didn't perform Landa. He savored him. He delivered monologues like a man feeding poisoned honey to an audience too hypnotized to notice.
Ooh, that's a bingo!
Tarantino trusted him instantly. He gave him pages of dialogue most actors would have trimmed down. Waltz didn't trim, he expanded. He found rhythm inside rhythm, not just what the line meant, but how it sounded in the air. It was the first time Tarantino didn't need to direct the energy, he just had to protect it. The result? An Oscar. Worldwide recognition. A performance so layered, it left people wondering whether they were charmed or haunted. And Tarantino? He wasn't finished. 2 years later, he wrote Doctor, King Schultz in Django Unchained, a bounty hunter, a gentleman, a moral compass in a brutal world, and he wrote him with one man in mind. After Bastards, Tarantino said, "I knew Christoph could play anything, so I gave him the opposite." Waltz delivered again, but this time he brought warmth. Still eloquent, still razor sharp, but kind, and that contrast didn't dilute his brilliance, it deepened it. Because Tarantino isn't just obsessed with voice, he's obsessed with duality. And Waltz is one of the few actors who can carry both ends of the spectrum without ever slipping out of control. He's charming without smiling, dangerous without raising his voice, wise without feeling distant. That's why Tarantino didn't just use him, he built space for him. Page after page of dialogue, character work, emotional nuance. Not because he had to, but because he could. He made the impossible effortless, Tarantino said. I had to bring him back. And even after 2 masterpieces together, Tarantino never overused him. No cameos, no throwaway roles, because Waltz wasn't a tool. He was an instrument. And when you hear something that sharp, that rare, that clear, you don't play it every time, you wait until the script is ready. And the silence around it demands a voice like his. Number 5. Kurt Russell. Quentin Tarantino doesn't work with nostalgia, he works with memory. And Kurt Russell, he's the memory Tarantino never let go of. From the Grindhouse era to 80s anti-heroes, Russell represented a kind of masculinity that didn't need explanation. He wasn't loud, he wasn't shiny, he was just there. And Tarantino grew up watching him, learning from the way he moved through silence, through swagger, through chaos. So when the chance came to work with him, Tarantino didn't cast Kurt Russell as a gimmick. He cast him as a ghost, from another era, returning to take over a new one. In Death Proof, Russell doesn't explode onto the screen. He creeps into it. As stuntman Mike, he's charming and pathetic, dangerous and pitiful. Tarantino once said, "There's a sadness in Kurt's eyes that you can't direct. You either have that or you don't." It's that sadness that made the character work. Russell brought more than violence. He brought regret. A faded legend trying to rewrite his own myth, one crash at a time. But the connection didn't stop there. Years later, when the Hateful Eight came together, Tarantino needed someone who could anchor a room full of killers. Not with rage, with presence.
You mean her? No, I do not have mixed emotions.
He needed the hangman, and Russell didn't audition, he just arrived. There's a gravity to the way Russell works. Tarantino knew he didn't need to over-direct him, just create space for that quiet authority to spread. And in interviews, Tarantino didn't hide it. Kurt brings a weight, a history. You feel every movie he's ever made in his silences. He isn't flashy, he isn't loud, and that's exactly why he fits. Tarantino's worlds are often filled with chaos, gunfire, monologues, blood and poetry. But when Russell shows up, the storm pauses. He holds it in place just long enough to reveal something human underneath the madness. That's rare. So rare Tarantino brought him back again, this time in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. The part was small, just a stunt coordinator, a narrator, a passing character, but Russell made it matter. One scene, one voiceover, and the whole film felt grounded. Because when Tarantino uses Kurt Russell, he's not just giving you a character, he's giving you an era. And that kind of presence, you don't overuse it. You honor it. You bring it back when the script demands silence before the storm. Number 6. Michael Madsen. Some actors are guests in the Tarantino universe. Michael Madsen was there before it was even built. When Reservoir Dogs dropped in 1992, it didn't just introduce a new voice in cinema, it introduced a new kind of actor-director relationship, one built not on stardom, but on trust. Tarantino cast Madsen as Mr. Blonde, a role so brutal, so electric, that most actors would have leaned into shock. But Madsen didn't flinch. He underplayed it, slower, quieter, more dangerous. Most guys would have screamed, Tarantino said. Mike whispered, that's why it worked. The ear-cutting scene became legend, but it wasn't about the violence, it was about the calm, the rhythm, the way Madsen made you want to look away even when nothing was happening yet. Tarantino watched that and knew this wasn't a one-time collaboration. He called Madsen family. From Kill Bill to The Hateful Eight, Madsen became part of the director's emotional architecture. He never played leads, he played presence. You'd feel him in a room before he said a word. And that's exactly what Tarantino loves. Stillness, danger wrapped in quiet. Madsen never asked for more screen time. He didn't need to. He earned permanence. They'd talk between films, share notes. Tarantino would write scenes with Madsen's timing in mind, not just his look, not just his voice, but the way he lets a moment breathe. There's a scene in The Hateful Eight where Madsen delivers a single line that shifts the entire tone. Tarantino didn't oversell it. He trusted the gravity. Mike makes silence feel like dialogue, Tarantino once said. Theirs isn't a flashy partnership. It's not soaked in press, but it's real, durable, rooted in the work. Tarantino gave Madsen recurring roles, not out of loyalty, but because no one else could fill those quiet, smoldering spaces. The parts that don't scream for attention, but hold all the pressure. When Once Upon a Time in Hollywood rolled around, Tarantino gave Madsen a small part again. It wasn't about legacy. It was about continuity. It was about knowing who still fits, no matter how much time has passed. Some guys are always right for the frame, Tarantino said. Mike's one of those guys. No awards, no headlines, just consistency. And that, in Tarantino's world, is the highest praise. Because some actors age out, others fade. But Michael Madsen? He's still in the room, still watching, still dangerous. And Tarantino never had to say it out loud, he just kept writing him back in. Quentin Tarantino doesn't just choose actors, he absorbs them into the way he tells stories. Once he finds someone who fits, who understands the rhythm, the silence, the madness, he doesn't move on. He returns. Again and again, until that performance becomes part of the language itself. The actors on this list didn't audition their way into his world. They earned it by becoming something more than performers. They became his voice. Let us know which one you think defines his universe the most. Drop a comment, like the video, and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you want more stories like this, uncut and unfiltered, you can always join the channel.